Question period, Canada. So I think we have some pretty fun stuff lined up to show. We're gonna try to just chill out a little bit. I get so wound up when I'm broadcasting. It's a lot on my heart, I think. But what we're gonna try to figure out is how to relax and just chill out with you guys. We're gonna show a video, then we're gonna circle back, say hello to everybody. We'll do some typing in between. And this is a crazy day that happened in Parliament. Like in the House of Commons, it was nuts. It was absolutely crazy. We're going to jump straight in. Let's take a peek.
Implement extremist policies that have taken the lives of 2,500 British Columbians every single year. Since the NDP has asked him to reverse course on his and formerly their radical policy, 22 British Columbians have died of drug overdoses. But he continues to allow those drugs to kill the people in our hospitals and on our public transit. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No. That is not there are a couple of things which are going on here today.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Question Period Canada. How y'all doing? What a crazy day in the House of Commons. A couple of people got booted out by the House Speaker, Greg Fergus, who's well, we'll check in and see what Greg Fergus is all about here in a minute. But my oh my, after Poilievre gets the boot, after Thomas gets the boot, the entire Conservative caucus bails from the House of Commons. It is something that I've never seen before. I haven't even heard of this, but we're going to get into the heavy stuff right away. Like, Greg Fergus is a problem as House Speaker. Almost you could feel bad for him, but he makes these stands and has double standards. Trudeau gets the better treatment. Poilievre gets the boot, won't back down on this one. It is so wild and crazy. Let's take a peek at this. Craziest moment that I've ever seen in the House of Commons. Let's check it out.
The minister is not worth the drugs and death. His extreme and radical drug policy has increased overdose deaths in British Columbia by 380%. In the year following his decriminalization of crack, heroin, and other hard drugs in hospitals, transit buses, coffee shops, and parks where children play, there has been a record-smashing 2,500 deaths. Will the Prime Minister accept the BC NDP's demand to recriminalize those drugs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I just answered that question. What hasn't been answered by the Leader of the Opposition is why he chooses to continue to court extreme right nationalist groups like Diagolon. He refuses to denounce these extremists who don't believe Canadians should coexist with each other. Instead, they call for war and tell people to follow their instincts accordingly. The Leader of the Conservative Party is actively courting the support of groups with white nationalist views. It is disturbing, and he needs to stand up and apologize now.
Right now. Colleagues, so soon in question period, it is important that we try to control ourselves. I'll ask the honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton, please, to allow members to ask the questions and members to respond. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I always condemn extremism and racism, including from the guy who spent the first half of his adult life as a practicing racist, dressing up in hideous racist costumes so many times he can't remember.
The Honourable member, Leader of the Opposition, knows that to make an accusation directly at the character of a single ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to rephrase this question and to start from the top.
Mr. Speaker, I will also condemn the extremism of a Prime Minister who gives hundreds of thousands of dollars of anti-racism money to a Jew hater who has proposed shooting Jews in the head. I condemn a Prime Minister who allows the IRGC, which murdered 55 Canadians, to remain legal. And I condemn a Prime Minister who allows open use of crack, heroin, meth, and weapons in hospital rooms that threaten nurses and on school buses next to children. Will the Prime Minister reverse his extremist policies and the death?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the leader opposite is showing us exactly what shameful, spineless leadership looks like. He shakes hands with white nationalists and then goes to actively court the support of those members and has the nerve. Get it together, Greg!
Any idea what you're doing?
Order. I'm going to ask the Honourable Member from Lethbridge if she has problems with the chair, that she should challenge the chair in a way. But as she knows, as the Honourable Member from Lethbridge knows, that by challenging the chair is against the rules of this House. I'll ask the Honourable Member to please to ask her to withdraw her remarks.
The chair is acting in a disgraceful manner.
I'm going to ask you, will you... Ms. Harder, I have to name you for disregarding the authority of the chair. Pursuant to authority granted to me by Standing Order 11, I order you to withdraw from the House and from any participation by video conference for the remainder of this day's sitting. Now back to the issue at hand. Mrs. Thomas, my apologies. Now back to the original point. I'm going to ask the Prime Minister to please, as I'd ask the Leader of the Opposition, you can start from again and to make sure that he does, to start his question, and to reframe it in a way that does not call into the character of an individual member of Parliament. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the leader opposite is showing us once again what he will do to try and earn votes through personal attacks. He shakes the hands of a leader of a white nationalist group, then goes to actively court the support of the group's members and thinks he can get away with it. This is a group that advocates for violence against US LGBTQI+ Canadians, against Hindus and Sikhs, against Muslims and Jews. Diagolon stands against everything we stand for as Canadians, and yet he will not denounce them or what they stand for. That is shameful, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that, like everything else he says, is false. He uses fear and falsehood and this latest distraction because he doesn't want to face the fact that he has become so extreme and radical that even the BC NDP is distancing themselves from his decriminalization of crack, heroin, meth, and other hard drugs in hospital rooms, causing nurses to have to stop breastfeeding their babies for fear that their contaminated air might end up in the breast milk of the baby. Why won't he ban these drugs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Still won't condemn these groups. Any leader that needs the support of a far-right white nationalist group to fundraise and get closer to power does not deserve elected office. This is a 19-year career politician who knows exactly what he's doing and thinks he can get away with it. It was a choice to pander to white nationalists, not an accident. And it is a choice to continue to not condemn them and condemn everything they stand for in his quest for votes.
I'm going to ask the honourable member for the second time from St. Albert, Edmonton, to please withhold his comments until he has the floor. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is a choice for him to implement extremist policies that have taken the lives of 2,500 British Columbians every single year. Since the NDP has asked him to reverse course on his and formerly their radical policy, 22 British Columbians have died of drug overdoses. But he continues to allow those drugs to kill the people in our hospitals and on our public transit. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No. That is not acceptable. There are a couple of things which are going on here today, which is not acceptable. And I ask all members, please, to keep themselves, to control themselves. I'm going to ask two things. One, I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that term, which is not considered parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, I replace wacko with extremist. He is an
The honourable member to please. I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition once again to just withdraw that comment, please. And I'll invite the honourable member. I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to please withdraw that comment and simply withdraw that comment.
I'll replace it with radical leftist policy.
I am not asking to replace. I'm asking the honourable member to just simply withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, I replace the word wacko with extremist.
I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition one last time to please withdraw that comment and simply withdraw that comment.
I simply withdraw and replace with the aforementioned adjective.
Mr. Poilievre, I have to name you for disregarding the authority of the chair. Pursuant to the authority granted to me by Standing Order 11, I order you to withdraw from the House and from any participation by video conference for the remainder of this day's sitting.
He actually stood there for 2 minutes just like this, so we're gonna skip that, get back into how it wraps up. My goodness, Greg Fergus, things are out of control, my man. You're in trouble.
The second matter which I was going to bring up was the fact that I was hearing some catcalling from the far end of the House. I wasn't able to identify the person, but I'll ask all members to carry themselves in a way that is dignified for this House. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition wants to talk about extremism. Well, a week ago, he visited a Diagolon encampment. Diagolon hates that minorities in this country get the same protections as everyone else, and they are charter-protected rights. Just yesterday, a week after the Conservative leader sat down with
I'll ask the honourable member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes to please withdraw, to please only take the microphone when he is afforded the opportunity to ask a question. I'll ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister to continue. I'm going to ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister to finish his question. He has 15 seconds left on the clock.
Mr. Speaker, the association of the Leader of the Opposition with Diagolon and their disdain for charter-protected rights brought them to just yesterday, a week after he sat down with Diagolon members, he gave a speech pledging to overturn the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the rights of Canadians and our justice system. That's dangerous.
So there's a whole bunch of phony baloney things that happened after that. They wouldn't show the Conservatives leaving. I don't know why the director of Cpac wouldn't have shown that, but they chose not to. I don't know why. It was a crazy day in Parliament. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine the headlines that are going to come out of this. Like, I believe possibly Canadians are going to be more interested in Canadian politics. We are live after they see some of these videos that I made on earlier. What is That's just a video I made earlier, and now the idea of this show is to show the fallout of what happened today. We've got some great stuff to show. We're going to jump right into it, because I just want to show you. Like, I just want Canadians to see this stuff. So we're getting into that.
Can you explain why
Here we go.
All of the Conservatives walked out at one point?
Yeah, so after 9 years of Justin Trudeau and his NDP Liberal government, we're in a situation where even the NDP government in British Columbia has called for the Liberals to end the wacko decriminalization policy that they've implemented there that sees drugs like heroin, crack, cocaine, and all orders of illegal substances now being used on playgrounds, transit, coffee shop patios, and in hospitals. It's a situation where it's so wacko that nurses who work in hospitals are afraid of breastfeeding their babies when they go home because they're concerned about the crack smoke that they're being exposed to in British Columbia hospitals. So the leader of the official opposition raised the issue of this wacko policy and was ejected by the Liberal speaker for calling it exactly what it is. And so we're not going to stay in proceedings when there's two sets of rules. One set of rules for a Prime Minister who isn't asked to follow the same rules that the official opposition is. Our job is to ask questions and to hold the government accountable. It's not the job, of course, of the Speaker, because he's a Liberal, to protect a Prime Minister whose wacko policies are putting people's lives in danger. And now we know that the Liberals are considering the same policy. It's a wacko policy, but for the city of Toronto here in Ontario.
But Mr. Poilievre was asked to withdraw the comment, and he did not twice.
Yeah,
Why not? Why not, instead of having this situation where he was removed from the House. Why not withdraw that comment?
Yeah, quite simply, Mr. Poilievre did withdraw the comment.
He replaced it. He did not withdraw it.
Well,
he said he replaced it, and
of course, the problem, Mike, is that the problem is that there's two sets of rules. There was a set of rules that was being applied to the leader of the official opposition, and there was a different set of rules being applied to the Prime Minister. And so Mr. Poilievre laid out very clearly that it's a wacko policy, and so it's for the Prime Minister to explain why he's letting that stand.
So what happens to the House of Commons? What happens to?
We're asking about the speaker and the incident. Any thoughts on what happened? And any thoughts, Ms. Harder?
It's a very short. Absolutely. How else would you define what the Liberals are doing? It 100% is. And the fact that the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada was thrown out of there for doing his exact job is shameful. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Ms. Ferrari, any thoughts on the speaker's decision just now?
Just that he's a wacko.
Juste pour qualifier ce qu'on a vu tout à l'heure en chambre, c'est assez inhabituel.
C'est un geste historique de mon histoire à moi, personnelle, j'ai jamais vu ça. Mais quand notre chef se fait mettre dehors de la chambre, on est solidaire avec lui. Si notre chef ne peut pas poser de questions, nous autres non plus ne pouvons pas en poser. Et demain, ça sera un autre jour, espérons-le.
Quand même, la règle voudrait que si le président lui dit de retirer ses propos, il devrait le faire. Est-ce que vous croyez que c'était la bonne chose pour lui de ne pas retirer ses propos?
Si on regarde les deux côtés, de la manière que ça s'est passé, il y a deux poids, deux mesures. Que le président a...
What is happening to our country, guys? I did all of those greetings with my audio down. I'm so sorry. Oh, Lord. I'm going to do the greetings again. PE, what's up? Good to see you. Always Patty, that's a treat. Kirk, you're the best. Two Flips, my man. We've got some other people that are here. Hey, Janice, good to see you. Greta, good to see you again. That's nice. James, what's up? Drakovich, good to see you. Did I get you already? Two Flips? Sorry, I'm going through these very quickly. Serena, good to see you, always. You seem like a nice person. I don't know what you're doing hanging out with these people, but Sandy, good to see you too. Lady Smith, yeah, that's nice. Come and hang out, watch our channel some more, see what else we do. Anyway, we're going to drop back into the video. Abraham Chan, what's up? Hopefully not meaning to miss anybody. Thank you very much, Janice, and it's hard to remember. Diane, too, thank you so much for signing up. We'll try to make it worth your while. Anyway, back into the politics, guys, because we've got way more to show.
The last week, you have a leader of the opposition who proactively visits and cultivates the support of white nationalist extremist groups, people who have threatened wars on LGBTQ communities, who have threatened to gang rape female journalists. This is not normal. What is also not normal, and which we should not overlook, is that just yesterday, with a wink and a nod, the leader of the opposition threatened to tear up the Charter of Rights. So it is no surprise that now all jacked up on this very extreme rhetoric, the House of Commons turns into something quite unprecedented, where the opposition are asked repeatedly to withdraw their extremist language, refuse to do so, and when they're not permitted to continue with their extremist language, withdraw from the House. Donc ce que vous venez de voir, ce n'est pas normal. Nous avons un chef de l'opposition qui, revisons, dans la dernière semaine, a proactivement visité des extrémistes blancs, des gens qui ont menacé le viol en gang de journalistes féminins, qui ont menacé la communauté LGBTQ, qui font preuve d'un langage extrême. Hier, le chef de l'opposition, après avoir eu la... Vous avez vu les instances. Évidemment, this level of extreme right-wing rhetoric, and I would just say to all of you and to all Canadians that it is not normal what we are seeing. And we have to avoid making this seem banal or some sort of normal part of political back and forth. This is not what that is. This is violent rhetoric, this is extreme rhetoric, and this is rhetoric that must absolutely no longer be in our politics.
What did you make of this slight retraction?
Which slight retraction?
When Pierre Poilievre changed his wording.
Well, that's not what he was asked to do by the Speaker, who's elected by all of us to apply the rules and apply them evenly. And we urge the Speaker to continue to apply the rules and to apply them to all members of the House.
Vous ne pensez pas que vous avez alimenté par vos attaques, vous aussi, partisanes, ce qui s'est passé tout à l'heure?
Vous avez été là, M. Blouin, à écouter les mêmes questions que moi. Vous avez vu et observé le langage excédentaire et extrémiste dont fait preuve et dont utilise le chef de l'opposition. Donc, je répète, il ne faut pas banaliser cette situation-là. Il faut analyser son langage. Il faut analyser ce qu'il dit, ce chef de l'opposition. Ça n'a jamais été vu au Canada. C'est extrême, c'est extrémiste, et on doit absolument le dénoncer.
You're saying his speech was extreme and violent. What part of it was extreme and violent? He said wacko. Is that what you're saying is extreme and violent?
You were there for the same question period as me. He basically accused the Prime Minister of having policies to murder people and to have people die. That is after a week, I think you missed the first part of this, where he's cultivating the violent, extreme white nationalist right, where yesterday, with a wink and a nod, he's threatening to rip up our Constitution and our charter rights. So this is not normal, and I would ask and urge us all to not normalize this. This is not banal what's going on.
Mais est-ce que le président va être capable de garder le contrôle demain, par exemple? Que ça annonce quoi?
Je laisse au président, évidemment, on a élu ce président, on lui demande évidemment d'appliquer les règles. C'est ce qu'il a fait aujourd'hui et c'est ce que j'espère qu'il continuera de faire.
It's very likely he or at least some members of his party are going to come out in a few minutes and accuse you guys of tyranny. How would you respond to that?
I would say that that is not normal language. We are in a democracy. We are participating every day here in a democratic exercise. We're voting on budgets, we're passing laws, we're debating them in a completely conventional way. The language being applied to situations in Canada is not normal. These people find advantage, somehow, for some reason, in getting people all jacked up. This Leader of the Opposition is using terms and terminology that should not be part of our discourse, and we should not normalize it. Thank you very much.
Where you can bring Parliament back to a functioning state. Right now, it is not functioning. What is
well, what's not functioning about it? What is not functioning is that the Conservatives...
But what part of this, what part responsibility do you guys take on the government benches for letting it get to this state, and how do you get it back to a place where Canadians can look at Parliament and say, that works?
I would say to you that any objective analysis of this situation, would take you to the extreme terminology and language and tactics that are being used by the right wing in this country and that have unfortunately been imported into this chamber by Conservatives in this country. This is violent rhetoric. This is damaging rhetoric. This is meant to provoke extreme reactions, and we hope that the Conservatives come back to normal. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. You know, I couldn't help but notice a refreshing change in the House of Commons this afternoon. For once, there was would seem to be a unanimous consent that climate change exists and that we ought to help people in need. The civil discourse was certainly difficult to not appreciate towards the end of question period there, but sadly, it was as a result of a tantrum and a remarkable unwillingness to call out far-right extremism and to denounce Diagolon and to denounce an endorsement from Alex Jones in the United States, somebody who has lied for years about parents who have had to go through the most horrific thing that any parent would ever have to go through, is the death of their children. Pierre Poilievre has demonstrated contempt for Parliament. He's demonstrated that he, certainly likes to dish it out, but when anybody brings up something that he's been up to lately that is, quite frankly, disgraceful, and he should take accountability for that, he's summoned his entire caucus out of the room, which is certainly not emblematic of a government in waiting. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have any on this very remarkable question period today.
What do you think this does to the tenor of the House going forward? We're kind of towards the end of the sitting days.
Well, we've got 6 or 7 weeks left. There's a lot of work to be done, and I came to this House because I believe there's good ideas on the right, and I believe there's good ideas on the left, and I believe that if we work together and form consensus views and collaborate on key issues to support Canadians, then we'll have a stronger country. But one way that we will not have a stronger country is if we lean into the ugliest factions of our country. If we lean in on, people who really need a little bit of support, maybe we need to reach out to some of those folks who are really struggling with mis and disinformation. But then there's some folks out there who are demonstrating clearly racist, intolerant ideology that needs to be called out by every member in the House of Commons. And for the Conservatives and for Pierre Poilievre just to refuse to denounce far-right extremism on behalf of these organizations that have been referred to by security experts and Canadian intelligence as far-right extremists who it's just going to lead to more violence and disinformation and distrust in our institutions. So once again, I'll call on Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to denounce these far-right extremist groups. It shouldn't be that hard to do.
Why do you think every party is resorting to name-calling at the moment?
Well, I'll say that it's unfortunate. I'll also acknowledge that I've used words in the House of Commons that later, upon reflection, I shouldn't have. The temperature in there is high, it's hot, and people are, resorting to childhood, tactics and name-calling, which I think we all ought to just take a beat and recognize we can be a lot better, and Canadians are watching. I saw a lot of young people up in the gallery today, and I reflected on how democracy seems to be functioning from their position. I was in a grade 4, 5, and 6 class last Friday, Martin Street Public School in Milton, And those kids asked great questions. They had good ideas. They made...
saying that he's being censored by the Liberal speaker. You guys are saying he's courting far-right extremists. How do you restore some level of calm to Parliament right now? It feels like everyone's getting more polarized.
I don't think it's too much to ask a leader of an official party in Canada to denounce far-right extremism and a group who has been identified by Canadian security and intelligence as a terrorism organization. That's not too much to ask. I have a lot of conservative friends. They're not far-right ideologues. They're not racist. They are not extremist. Conservatives deserve to have somebody who they feel represent their views, and whatever those views might be. I can guarantee that the vast majority of Canadian Conservatives do not consider themselves far-right, racist, extremist ideologues, and that's exactly who Diagolon is. That's exactly who Pierre Poilievre is unfortunately courting. He went out of his way to visit and sit down with this organization. That is absolutely disgraceful, and it needs to be called out.
If it's not popular actions, then why are the Conservatives polling so well right now?
Look, all I know is that Pierre Poilievre is spending his free time in between sitting weeks courting far-right ideologues and spending time with organizations who Canadian intelligence have referred to as terrorist groups. That is absolutely disgraceful. It needs to be called out plain and simple that no political party should be meeting with these organizations and courting their support.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Do you want to hear me on this as well?
Actually, I'd like to talk to you a little bit.
I want to talk about this first, though.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, this is something that we haven't seen, I think, in our tenure. Is extremely rare occurrence to see someone get kicked out of the House of Commons, the leader of the opposition. I think Canadians see that this is a guy with very, very thin skin, and he never apologizes for anything. I think in a normal person looking at this,
we'll get better at interjections. I don't do too many of them because I just let the politicians talk, but it's so weird to me how tone deaf the Liberals are. Like, they're coming out here like they won something. I feel as a part of the 70% of Canadians that want an election right now that there was a big victory today for the Conservatives and for the initiative of an election in the spring. Just saying, they're coming out here and they're trying to twist everything. It's a weird thing with these guys. I can't believe this is happening in our country at this level of politics, but they're like this clown right here is just trying to dupe us. Like, listen to
situation that he got into in the Maritimes would say, I messed up, I shouldn't have met with these people. Look at Canadians if you're looking to lead them and say, I'm sorry. I mean, this is a group of people associated with folks who made deep insults to his family and his wife. If I had done that, I'd be on the couch for 3 months. And so he needs to take a look at himself and look at, I'm not accusing Pierre Poilievre of being a racist. I'm not accusing him of being an extremist, but he plays footsies with them and he dances with them. So I think Canadians need to see that and see him for who he is, because I think it's quite dangerous and it isn't dignified. It isn't something that should be in a person that is supposed to lead, at least in his riding, regardless of the party that you're with. And so what the Speaker did today was a good thing, and I hope it doesn't happen again. I hope the guy learns how to be a little remorseful for something that's just a dumb thing, and he keeps doing dumb things. So Canadians will see that, and I think they'll need to call it out.
Do you think what happened today is going to fuel the narrative that he's being silenced by the Liberals?
Who's being silenced?
Pierre.
That guy's never shut his mouth in his life. Who silences him? He keeps saying dumb things. I think it would be good if he shut up. He shut his yap once in a while. But the stuff that he does in the House of Commons is disgraceful. But he plays on that. He's a guy that likes to play outside the lines. When someone steps out the lines to confront him, he freezes. So that's the guy people are in bed with.
In Budget 2024, you have a lot of new measures about immigration. Today there was more measures announced. Are any of those measures going to propose today make it more difficult for people to claim asylum in Canada?
Sorry, what's the last part of your question?
Are any of the measures today that were shown in that 40-page document going to make it more difficult for people to claim asylum in Canada?
You know, I think some of the measures that They are mostly public safety related. They are efficiencies within the system that I think we can take a look at. They obviously have to follow due process and what we hold up high as an efficient immigration system. We want to streamline the process. There are matters that we think are duplicative, and I think we'll stand by them. They will need obviously scrutiny from the House. I think what will help with due process principally is the investments of about $750 million to ensure equity in the processing times, which have jumped, obviously, because of the flow of asylum seekers coming to Canada, other countries around the world in similar situations as well. So that will help. Nothing overnight, but it's stuff that we need to do because this is a system that does have backlogs. I think the biggest impact on due process is actually the lag in time that has jumped recently because of the flow.
When you talk about streamlining processes, there's a line that says you're going to streamline deportations for people whose claims have been denied. How are you going to do that when there is such a backlog right now, and it does take years for people to get?
Yeah. Well, I think, frankly, there are people that are not entitled to be in this country. They have received due process upon due process, and it still takes time. Recognizing that is one thing, but acting on that is another. I think this is a step in the latter direction. Again, this is always in a context of fairness and due process. We always look at the system in the way we can improve it. It has challenges. It has matters that impact the time between someone gets to the country, gets assessed either positively or negatively, and then is asked to leave or is forced to leave, and those times are too long in some places.
Certainly they're too long. Are you willing to put any targets or goals in place for the timeline that you'd like those to happen within?
No, not yet. They need to be quicker. They need to be more efficient, and I think that's why we rely on feedback from the Immigration Refugee Board, which is not a wing of the Canadian government. It is a judicial institution, and we listen to them when they say what is it that they need to make claims faster, more efficient, and as well as public safety and the processes they follow in order to remove people when they are no longer welcome in this country and choose not to leave alone.
So just going back to what happened today, I know you said the opposition leader never shuts his mouth. He is tweeting that he's been censored by the Liberal speaker.
It's a weird form of censorship to be able to tweet you're being censored. He was not. He was sanctioned by the leader for the unparliamentary conduct that is long-standing in Parliament. So he's creating his own narrative. He's been very successful at that. It just does not match reality.
Do you think the government has any responsibility in trying to bring down the polarization currently happening in Parliament?
Absolutely, but the first way to bring down polarization is not to play footsie with extremists. And when that happens, we need to point it out. People say, oh, it's just Pierre hanging out with his base. It's a little more insidious than that. And these are people that, look, these are people that don't respect anyone. They don't respect him. They think he's a dweeb as well. So, I think there's something that needs to be reckoned with. He has an incessant need to get affirmation and confirmation for any person that supports some of his views, and he goes and gets them with anyone. There's some people whose vote I don't want. I really don't, Rafi, and it's not something they can go vote for someone else. But it's based on my principles, and it's based on healthy debate. So, yes, the government has a role in bringing people together. We absolutely do. But when we see egregious behavior that was properly sanctioned by the House, we also need to call it out.
What is that role the government has to bring down the temperature of partisan debate?
Well, again, it depends on the issue. There's no way I'm going to brush extremism, whether it's anti-Semitic, anti-Islamophobic hate speech, under the carpet. I'm not going to let it by. We need to have a place for healthy debate, but as you've seen in the House of Commons, it's far more often than not recently been rather unhealthy. And the fact that they were quite thin-skinned and they picked up their marbles and left the House is a sign of who they are as a party. You're in the House as, yes, leader of the opposition, prime minister, but we're all equal. We are representing our ridings. The rest of the party didn't need to leave today, but their bread is buttered by Pierre Poilievre, and none of them had the courage to stay and ask questions of the government, which is very much a privileged time for people in Canada. It's something that we're quite proud of as a country. In the U.S., Congress can't bring in people, the executive, Mr. Biden's executive and cabinet, to question them on a daily basis. In Canada, I think it's pretty special based on this Westphalia, based on the parliamentary tradition that we have, that you can drag in the executive and ask them questions every day. They held their breath picked up their marbles and walked out of the house, that's a sign of character.
You're calling them thin-skinned, but won't some Canadians look at this and see that, well, he was ejected for using the word wacko? That's not an astoundingly offensive word.
It's been, look, there are plenty of unparliamentary words that are used. They may seem arcane and archaic. I have been guilty of using them myself. When I've done it, I've gotten up and apologized. So he wasn't sanctioned for using the word. He was sanctioned for not retracting it. And when he did, he was a big baby, and for about 3 or 4 rounds, he played words in order to not apologize. And I think that is telling of a character of a person. So he used the words, wrong on him. He then was sanctioned, refused to apologize. That attacks the integrity and the authority of the chair, which is sacrosanct in this House. Thank you, guys.
So I just wanted to comment on what happened just in the House. Obviously, it's very disappointing. The House of Commons is a place for open dialogue and debate. And today, we saw the real colors of Pierre Poilievre when he was confronted with something that happened last week, where he essentially met with extremist, white supremacist, and he hasn't taken ownership of it. He hasn't accounted for it. He hasn't apologized. I really do think this puts a lot of Canadians at unrest, because for many racialized people, what the encounter represents is something that's deeply troubling, that speaks to the othering of Canada. And I think as a national leader, there's a responsibility for Pierre Poilievre to take ownership, and it's very disappointing he just walked away. So did his caucus, and it doesn't really speak well for the democratic traditions that we're used to here.
You're talking about Pierre Poilievre's meetings that you're saying are controversial. Peel police chief had controversial meetings in Sri Lanka with a person who was found to be torturing 2 weeks earlier. Any thoughts on that?
Look, I can speak about that at some other time. I think there's, right now, what's critical to understand is that Pierre Poilievre is someone who walked away from controversy when he was challenged, and it is not, it's not consistent with the role that he plays. With respect to what happens in Sri Lanka, I speak about it extensively. Canada is not Sri Lanka. Canadian parliamentary system is not the Sri Lankan parliamentary system. So I think there's a definite need to understand the difference, and the democratic values that we espouse requires proper, thoughtful debate amongst peers who are from different parties, and that's what Parliament represents. We had 3 other political parties that, 4 parties in fact continued question period, and that is very important, because this is the way that governments are held to account, and the question period is for members to ask those questions. And sadly, I think Pierre Poilievre walked away when he was targeted, when he was when we questioned his integrity.
With respect, Tamil Canadians are asking for an apology from that police chief. Do you think that there should be an apology for that meeting?
I will leave it to the chief to respond to that.
The Conservatives are saying the Speaker's been unduly harsh towards them. Do you believe the Speaker could have in any way been operating along partisan lines?
Look, my sense is that there was a need for decorum in the House. Over the last several months, it's very clear, sitting through a question period virtually every day, that the tone and tenor of question period is oftentimes very difficult, because it speaks to the toxicity that exists within the Conservative Party and the questions that's posed. There are some real issues that Canadians are facing today. For example, the drug crisis is one of them. And to trivialize and to really narrow that into simplistic arguments is not what we need. We need an adult conversation about decriminalization and what's happening in British Columbia and in communities across Canada. It cannot be resolved with slogans. So what we saw today, I believe, is a moment where a leader of the opposition just walked away from a very difficult question that he had to answer. He refused to walk away, and now he's tweeting out random thoughts that really doesn't speak to the reality of what happened today in Parliament.
That heat and toxicity, as you say, you felt while sitting in question period, do you feel that has grown over the last 6 months, year?
You know, I go back to Arnold Chan, right? So I don't know if you were there when Arnold Chan did his last speech in Parliament. I think it was in June of 2017, and he talked about the need for civility and the need for people to get together. You know, Parliament is comprised of 338 Canadians from all walks of life. I personally like to think that I have really good relationships with people from all parties, including the Conservative Party. And I think what's missing right now is that when we're in Parliament, we're here to do good for Canadians. We're not here to pull each other down. There is a need to hold governments to account, and that is an absolute responsibility of an opposition party, and I really urge the opposition to do that. But I think to trivialize issues of life and death in a way that simplifies it and really doesn't speak to, you know, what's happening on our streets, I think it's irresponsible. And if you look at the toxicity around that, that is not the Prime Minister's fault. It is something that we're working with the province of British Columbia and others. So to blame certain things on one individual, I think, is completely unfair. And the debate needs to be elevated to a point where we talk about actual solutions. Thank you.
I'll ask you a different question. We've seen military complaints going up, even though they're not doing the criminal sexual assault anymore in that system, but we've seen a number of complaints go up. Do you have any comment on that?
One of the things that I think is very important is the work of the Military Complaints Commission is, I think, facilitating and making sure that members have a voice. And I think it's really important. Quite frankly, I would always be concerned about an increase in complaints, but we want to encourage people to feel comfortable bringing their concerns forward, and I want them to be assured that their concerns will be taken seriously, that action will be taken, and so I think initially we would see an increase in those complaints, but we are also making sure that every member of the Canadian Armed Forces know that they work in a supportive, safe, and respectful environment, and part of that is making sure that we respond to any concerns that they may bring forward.
How concerned are you that they're going up, though? You said you would be concerned. What level of concern are you at?
Well, again, I've also taken the opportunity, sometimes with the Chief of Defense, sometimes on my own. I've gone to bases across the country. I've had the opportunity to actually sit down in town halls and in discussions with members of the Canadian Armed Forces. We've talked about some of the challenges they face in serving their country. I think it's one of the most noble choices that any Canadian can make, to choose to serve in our armed forces, to defend our country, and at the same time, we understand that service can cause some challenges to them in their life with respect to housing and access to childcare. It can be challenging because of the various deployments and training that they undertake for families, and we've got to make sure, and it's important to sit and listen to them about their experience and to ask them how we can help. And I've heard from, for example, some very legitimate concerns about access to housing. And so we're working on a number of initiatives right across the country, military bases, in order to ensure that our members have access to affordable housing so that they don't have that concern and burden when they are deployed or when they move. Similarly for their families. And they've talked to us about family health care. They've talked about employment for their spouses. They've talked to us about access to childcare. Those are all things that I'm actually quite grateful that they bring forward. And at the same time, they're proud of the work that they're doing. They're proud of their service. We're going to do everything we can to support them.
Respectfully, I don't think you said whether you were concerned or not. I'm not sure you answered the question. Are you concerned?
I'm always concerned when any member has a complaint to bring forward. I think we have a very effective grievance process. I met just yesterday with people from our grievance committee. I think it's very important that we have those mechanisms in place. And again, I'm proud to be part of an organization. I'm proud to be the minister responsible for an organization that has put those mechanisms in place, has extraordinary, dedicated people who listen to those complaints, work very diligently to resolve those grievances when they come up forward. We all have a responsibility to support the men and the women of the Canadian Armed Forces. I will always share their concerns, and at the same time, I'm committed to making sure that we respond in an appropriate way.
What do you make of what transpired during a question period today in the House?
I think it was a little bit of unnecessary theater, but quite frankly, the language was clearly inappropriate, and I think what the decision that the Speaker was forced to make was the appropriate one. I also have concerns, quite frankly, with any parliamentarian. We have had, I think, some very difficult experiences in this country, and I've seen it around the world, with ideologically motivated extremist groups. And I think we should all be very careful with any action that might appear to legitimize the extremists of their ideologies. And I think it is important that every member of Parliament be diligent in not either intentionally or inadvertently promoting those groups, because frankly they are hateful. They are potentially a serious risk to many vulnerable people in this country. Thank you all very much.
Ce que vous avez vu à la période des questions tout à l'heure, M. Poilievre qui a refusé de retirer ses propos. La question qu'on peut se poser quand on regarde tout ça, est-ce que les libéraux n'ont pas un peu contribué à l'enflure, à faire monter la température tout à l'heure? Qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
C'est parce que c'est simple. Si tu veux pas que ça prenne de l'ampleur, cette histoire-là, tu te dissocies des groupes d'extrême droite. C'est la chose la plus facile à faire, de se dissocier des groupes qui prônent la suprématie blanche au Canada. Donc, quand tu étais capable de le faire, ça démontre qui tu es et ce en quoi tu crois.
Et est-ce que vous craignez pour le climat au Parlement? Parce qu'on regarde ça, on se dit demain, comment le président va-t-il garder le contrôle, etc.
Pour les gens qui ont regardé la période de questions aujourd'hui, quand les conservateurs ont quitté, tout d'un coup, on s'est mis à avoir des vrais débats. Tout d'un coup, on s'est mis à avoir des questions avec la substance au lieu de seulement des...
Canada is in terrible shape
in the House of Commons, and do you think that we can get to a place where civility is restored? Because it seems like it's lacking right now, or at least there's an issue, obviously, in the House.
I think it's exactly the way Mr. Poilievre and his group want it to be. They continue to say that, Canada is in terrible shape and the rest of it. So an attack on how the civility is in the House, so that we can't even run it. Actually, after they left, we had a great question period. Everybody was respectful of each other, as it should be.
What do you think happens tomorrow with question period?
I think Mr. Poilievre should come into question period and sit down and behave himself as what Canadians expect him to be. He's touting himself as the next leader. Well, he needs to show it, and he certainly wasn't showing it today.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on the Speaker's ruling?
Well, the Speaker is doing his job, plenty of opportunity for Conservatives to rescind their statements and to withdraw them, and he made his ruling, and that's what the Speaker is there to do.
Do you think radical is a fair comment, or is that unparliamentary?
You know what? The Speaker makes their decisions, and he consults with his table officers, and he made his decision, and I've been here for 3 terms now, and I respect all decisions, regardless if they're in favor of my party or not.
And where does this put the House of Commons? What's going to happen tomorrow when everyone comes back?
Well, that's a question you'll have to ask the Conservatives. I show up for work every day. Most of the people who say me they voted for me to show up every day to participate in question periods and in Parliament, and I will continue to.
For decorum, though?
Decorum is really important. That's how we get things done. And you notice that both the questions and the answers today, after the Speaker's ruling, certainly were very clear in a very democratic way, and it behooves, I believe, the opposition members to conduct themselves in a way that allows democracy to continue. We can never abandon democracy. We must continue to work towards, common goals for the betterment of Canadians. So that's our job, and it's okay to disagree, but we have to have decorum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Épouvantable. On a vu qu'est-ce qui est, M. Poilievre. On a déjà vu qu'il voulait brûler les services. Il veut brûler la Constitution. Il a parlé de ça hier et aujourd'hui, il veut brûler le Parlement. On a vu ça. Pierre Poilievre, il s'agit de la pyromanie. De refuser simplement d'accepter une directive qui vient de notre président, qui est élu par la... And for him to do this today, he made an inappropriate comment and refused to withdraw it. He seems to want to burn everything down. It's a pyromaniac Poilievre. And for him to do this today, I think, is incredible. It shows incredible discredit and disrespect for the parliamentary institutions that Canadians believe in. And I'm saddened by his actions today.
Do you think his comments were extremist or violent, as Mr. McKinnon alluded earlier?
I thought his actions were disrespectful for Parliament. I think his actions in meeting with white supremacist groups is profoundly extremist and disquieting, I think, for all Canadians. his actions today are inexcusable, and there's no way.
La période des questions, précisément, est-ce que quelque chose qu'il a dit en particulier, est-ce que c'était le terme WACO ou est-ce que c'était avant, quand il disait que le premier ministre avait des politiques qui tuent les gens, etc.? Qu'est-ce qui était inacceptable, d'après vous, dans les propos?
Mais parfois, on est enflammé, puis on dit des choses qui ne sont pas acceptables. C'était très clair que c'était inacceptable. Ce qui n'est pas normal, c'est de refuser quand le président lui demande simplement de retirer ses propos. C'est une chose normale qui se passe tous les jours ici en Parlement. Moi, je l'ai fait moi-même. J'étais obligé de retirer mes propos. Le fait qu'il ait refusé à plusieurs reprises, c'est ça qui démontre un manque de respect total pour les Canadiennes et les Canadiennes et pour notre système démocratique. Il n'est pas roi. Il devrait être soustrait au même règlement de procédure que tout le monde a dans ce Parlement. Et pour lui de dire, mais là, moi, je suis au-dessus de la loi, je trouve ça extrêmement inquiétant.
Ça nous annonce quoi pour la suite?
Mais là, il est obligé de retirer pour la journée. On va voir demain.
Moi, l'élection qui s'en vient, est-ce que ça vous inquiète de voir le ton aussi enflammé?
Mais il faut dire le ton des conservateurs, le fait que M. Poilievre est prêt de rencontrer des extrémistes, des suprémacistes blancs, des misogynes, ça c'est inquiétant de loin, mais je pense aussi que les Canadiennes et les Canadiens commencent à voir M. Poilievre pour qui il est. Et ça, c'est un autre exemple aujourd'hui.
Do you think that calling him a pyromaniac could also be seen as extreme? Don't you think that parliamentarians use inflammatory language all the time, like you just did, calling him a pyromaniac?
And if I did that in the House, the Speaker would call me to order and I would withdraw.
But it's okay if you do it in the hallway.
There are rules in Parliament that must be followed, and he has not followed them, and he did not respect the authority of the Speaker. The Speaker is elected by all members of Parliament. It's the foundation of our parliamentary system, of our democracy. We elect a Speaker. It's the first act of a new Parliament. And so electing the Speaker is the person that we then put in charge of assuring that all of our procedures, all of our standing orders are strictly upheld. Otherwise, it's chaos in the House of Commons. And so what the Speaker did is very normal. The Speaker asked a withdrawal. We see this happen regularly in Parliament. This is a rare time when a member of Parliament has simply refused to heed the direction of the Speaker.
Mr. Singh has also been kicked out. How much of this is about social media, ammunition for social media and fundraising on the part of the Conservatives?
I think a lot of this is about Conservatives trying to fundraise off hot-button issues. This is Parliament, though. This is our democracy. The federal government has a profound influence, good or bad, in the lives of people. And the reason why Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have been approaching this as adults in the room, fighting for pharmacare, fighting for dental care, fighting for affordable housing, fighting for anti-scab legislation, is because we believe the role of Parliament is to build people up. Mr. Poilievre seems to believe the role of the Conservative Party is to tear people down and tear our institutions down, and I profoundly regret his approach.
Mr. Singh was ejected from the House of Commons in 2020 when he was fighting over calling another member racist. Do you think this circumstance is different from what happened to Mr. Singh in 2020?
When that happened with Mr. Singh, we continued our work in the House, and we continued to do our work on behalf of Canadians. In this case, you saw the entire Conservative caucus simply walked out. They had questions that they could have asked. They chose not to. I think it shows a level of disrespect for Parliament that I have not seen in my 20 years on the Hill.
What the Conservative MPs were accusing the Speaker of was treating them unfairly, shutting them down too harshly. Do you see any merit in that? Is it possible that Mr. Fergus was being one-sided there?
I think Mr. Fergus is doing the same thing to any members of Parliament. I was asked just a few days ago to withdraw my remarks. I did not confront the Speaker. I did not challenge the Speaker. I understand that the Speaker's role is to uphold the standing orders and our procedures on behalf of all Canadians. We need to have a Parliament where people treat each other with respect. I don't deny that occasionally we go off and we say things that we should not say in the House of Commons. We have a responsibility to follow the directives of the person who upholds our standing orders and our procedures. And this is what I find disquieting about today, is with Mr. Poilievre chose to confront the Speaker rather than doing the right thing, the honourable thing, and withdrawing.
Why do you think it's become so heated now? This week, today, it does seem that this is particularly heated relative to what it's been in the last, few years, really. Why do you think it is right now?
I'm not going to speculate. I know how we approach our work, and how we approach our work is to build people up. Well, how we approach our work is to get legislation through, building on pharmacare, building on dental care, building on affordable housing and anti-scab legislation, building on things that will help Canadians. I don't know what motivates Conservatives aside from fundraising, and I haven't seen any sign in this House that they are actually trying to do anything, accomplish anything on behalf of Canadians. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
OK. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ce qui s'est passé? Est-ce que vous craignez pour la tenue du débat public au Parlement canadien?
Mais on a vu aujourd'hui c'est qui étaient des adultes qui, avec la dignité de... Vous savez, the concept with another word.
Well, time now for...
Sorry, just an introduction into the next piece. It's going to take a look at what happened today from the Cpac point of view. And let me tell you, the people watching here, I know you all have sensible minds. You can see what's happening, but watch how they interpret it. And this is what, like, your parents and grandparents are watching. Like, they'll believe it, because they trust the news still. Lord.
A look at what happened in politics today.
Generation Afro-Canadian, I only need to go back one generation to find a time when people that looked like us were barred from certain educational professions and educational professions and pursuits simply because of what we look like. As Canadians, we thought that those days of blatant discrimination were behind us. But I'm sad to say that because of Bill 21, we are right back to those dark days.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims spoke in front of the Supreme Court this morning after filing a motion to appeal Quebec's Bill 21. The group is calling on the Supreme Court to overturn a lower court decision that upheld the law and the Quebec government's preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause. The law prevents public servants in positions of authority in Quebec from wearing religious symbols, including hijabs, crucifixes, and yarmulkes. The Canadian government has said it would argue against the law when it came to the Supreme Court.
Nuclear is not green. And the risk of the contamination when you mine uranium. And all you have to do is go ask our sisters and brothers of the Navajo Nation and the continue despair that they have to live.
Indigenous leaders joined by Green leader Elizabeth May spoke on the Hill today, voicing their concerns over the government's plan to expand Canada's nuclear energy footprint. They say the government has not properly consulted Indigenous communities on plans to build modular reactors, nor on plans to transport, store, and dispose of nuclear waste on Indigenous territory. It's a move that the leaders argue violates their rights under the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And former Conservative MP Kenny Chiu appeared at the House Ethics Committee this morning, testifying on his experiences with misinformation and disinformation. Chiu alleges that he and the Conservative Party, as well as Chinese Canadians, were targeted by a campaign from the People's Republic of China. Chiu says it happened in the 2021 campaign, which he lost to his Liberal opponent.
It seeks to sow discord, erode trust, and undermine the foundations of truth. In the crucible of Canada's electoral process, truth and deceptions collided, leaving lasting scars on our democracy.
Chiu previously testified on the alleged disinformation campaign at the public inquiry into foreign interference earlier this year. An interim report from that commission is expected later this week.
The Canadian military is being deployed to a small Ontario town this week, and they're going to be going door to door to conduct wellness checks on civilians. Yes, you heard that right. Between Friday, May the 3rd and Sunday, May the...
We'll just put this on pause for a second. This is from our friends at Rebel News who do a crazy production. They're growing. You should check them out. Like, if you like the kind of stuff I do, you would love Rebel News. They're so much better than what I do. They're professional. Anyway, we're going to jump right in.
The 5th, the Canadian Armed Forces will be conducting special training in the Huron and Bruce counties. Residents in the Goderich area are being advised that wellness checks or door knocks will be performed in town on Saturday, May the 4th. Soldiers will be going door to door and speaking with residents to simulate what would happen if they were asked to check on the well-being of residents during an actual emergency. Now, after the news that came out about the Canadian military running an information campaign, something that blurred the lines with a psychological operation meant to influence the Canadian public during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that continued to operate for months after the Chief of Defense Staff ordered it to be shut down in the spring of 2020, this new simulation has people alarmed. See, by September of 2020, the military's Special Propaganda Unit had deployed loudspeakers in Nova Scotia to generate wolf noises to deceive Canadian soldiers into believing real wolves were in the area near their military bases. It was supposed to test the use of loudspeakers during PSYOP training. It gives 1984 Orwell vibes, but the exercise accidentally spread to civilians when a forged Nova Scotia Department of Lands and Forestry letter spread to the community, warning local residents that wolves were roaming the streets and they posed a threat to pets and children. It was a tale of incompetence and soldiers acting without authorization once again. And now, as the military prepares to go door to door to check on civilians, many are concerned about the lack of transparency with the government's use of military resources for questionable purposes, and how this not only infringes on privacy, but normalizes government intrusion into civilian everyday life. The potential misuse of power here, with the fact that the military continued an operation in 2020 after being ordered to shut it down and conducted a PSYOP on its own rank and file, further suggests a disregard for orders and the weaponization of military power for domestic purposes. The erosion of civil liberties throughout the last few years is not to be taken lightly, and for anybody who has been paying attention, this exercise, even if only benign, provokes worry from citizens about future conduct and again begins to normalize military involvement in citizen affairs. Overall, the combination of military training exercises with controversial military activities in the past has the public on edge and prompts more questions about government accountability, transparency, and the respect or lack thereof civil liberties. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini.
So the next one we have ready to go, and this is what we're going to wrap up on. Before we send it off, my name's Ehren. Like, subscribe. We're going to be here trying to do these shows. I've got a friend that's, I think, giving me good advice, saying that we should do some live stuff and just watch some videos, hang out together, share and comment with what we're seeing and learning about how quickly our country is going downhill. This isn't the country I grew up in. Like, it doesn't feel like it is. Like, does anyone else feel that way? Because it just got so woke, guys. Like, I'm not a racist, but like, they'll call me a racist. If you say anything against them, they just attack you with these woke words. And it's like, well, I don't even think like that. I can't imagine why you'd call me, but out on that. We're going into the next piece, guys. They say that Trudeau's bad.
We need to talk about the next leader of the Liberal Party. Mark Carbon Tax Carney has been out on the elitist speaking circuit. He's been unveiling his philosophies and his beliefs and his approach.
About the next leader of the Liberal Party, it's worth checking out. Thank you all so much for watching. There were so many people in the room new tonight. Thank you all for coming and joining. We're going to be learning about Canadian politics right here, so if you've got a couple of hours to kill, we'll be able to help you out with that. Assured. Anyway, we're going to wrap up with this one. Thank you all so much for watching. It's awesome. Having you guys to hang out with is crazy, man. It's so much fun. Can't lie about that. So I'm not going to. I don't have to. It feels really good to hang out with this crazy, enjoyable crew. It's amazing. Kirk, you must agree. We'll be talking.
To government, but only to a select group of Liberal insiders. He's not actually talking to Canadians. He's talking to the Liberal donor base, the Liberal activist base, the little club of elites in Canada who want to run your life for you.
We can't meet our ultimate objectives, which is to get to net zero, unless we do not just have a cap on emissions, but those emissions are brought effectively to zero.
So he's not really unpacking for Canadians what he would do when he takes over from Justin Trudeau. But what we do know about his beliefs are already very concerning. You see, he loves the carbon tax. The carbon tax that has driven up the cost of everything, made your fuel, home heating, and groceries more expensive. Mark Carney loves that. He also loves to talk down Canada's oil and gas sector. He badmouths it all around the world. He even calls for government policy to leave our natural resources in the ground.
Maybe up as much as half of oil reserves, proven reserves, need to stay in the ground if we're going to get to where we are.
Which obviously would have a devastating effect on the hundreds and thousands of Canadian men and women who work each and every day in that sector.
What's in the interest, the public interest first and foremost, very low emission, scope 1, scope 2, hydrocarbon production.
And here's the scary thing about Mark Carney. You see, as he attacks the Canadian men and women who work in our country's natural resource sector, he is actually the chair of Brookfield Asset Management. Now, what does Brookfield Asset Management do? They invest in oil and gas projects. The only trouble is, not here in Canada. Brookfield is part of a consortium of financial institutions that have taken a 49% stake in the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company's gas infrastructure. They're also big investors in the East-West pipeline in India, which carries gas from the country's southeast to Gujarat in the west. A $2 billion stake representing 90% of that project. Mark Carney wants to take over Justin Trudeau's job. So he has an obligation to come clean with Canadians. What is he going to do with the carbon tax? How much new deficit and debt is he going to rack up? How much higher would inflation and interest rates go if Mark Carney takes over from Justin Trudeau? Now, carbon tax Carney and the other Liberal elitists, they like to travel around the world playing with people's lives. They like to sit in their ivory towers and make rules and plans for the rest of us to follow, while they never have to face the harsh consequences of their terrible policies. This already shows that he's going to follow in the same steps as Justin Trudeau. Rules for everyone else while they get to live their protected lifestyles. Well, the very least he can do is come clean with Canadians. Show up at committee, answer questions, and be honest with the people of this country about what he would do when he takes over from Justin Trudeau. Tomorrow, Conservatives will move a motion at Finance Committee calling on Mark Carney to come and testify and be accountable for his positions and his policies. So watch tomorrow. The NDP have a choice. They can either vote with Conservatives for maximum transparency and accountability, or they will vote once again to cover for Justin Trudeau and protect him and his successor from scrutiny from Canadians.
Speaker, recognize, find the Speaker, the member from Calgary Mindapore.
Damning new information revealed today shows that ArriveCan contractors submitted receipts to the government for a company that doesn't even exist. Wow. This investigation already includes allegations of identity theft, forged resumes, contractual theft, fraudulent billing, price fixing, and collusion in the creation of the $54 million ArriveCan app. How much worse can this boondoggle get? Simple question, which Liberal insiders got rich?
Who got rich?
Did she say boondoggle? Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Question Period Canada. Do you guys recognize Stephanie Kuzy from the intro there? She's a wild cowgirl MP from Alberta, giddy up. And she has a point of order that she wants to make. She's upset about the ArriveCan scam app. They're doing an investigation at OGO Committee. It's always interesting. Let's take a peek at Stephanie Kuzy. She is a woman on fire with a point of order to make.
Of order, please go ahead, Mrs. Kuzy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to our witnesses for being here today. But Mr. Chair, I want to go into a piece of business I believe is very important for this committee, and not only for this committee, but for all Canadians. I believe it touches on a subject that we studied last year, very closely tied to the Arrive scam scandal, which I'm sure our witnesses here today have heard about, and that is the damning report of the procurement ombudsman regarding McKinsey. McKinsey, a company that has over $100 million in contracts with the...
We'll get to it, Mr. Backrack.
Thank you very much. It is relevant. Thank you very much. The committee.
No, but it has to be an actual point of order.
I'm waiting for that, Mr. Backrack. Please continue,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Kuzy.
Over $100 million in contract with this Trudeau government. But the most damning piece of this contract, of this report, Mr. Chair, is the fact that the procurement ombudsman found that the government actually bent the rules to favor McKinsey. Something similar we saw in the Arrive scam scandal. Once again, we see this Liberal government favoring their friends and insiders in McKinsey with the report of the procurement ombudsman, as we did in the Arrive scam scandal. Now, this is no surprise.
You get it?
As we have had, of course, the Dominic Barton, who came and testified at this committee, further tying the relevance, who advised Justin Trudeau on the Advisory Council on Economic Growth and their Indo-Pacific Advisory Committee. And then, of course, they went on to, I'm getting to the point, Mr. Chair, if they will allow me to do that.
Is this a point of order? I don't think this is a point of order.
Hey, gentlemen.
No, it's an abuse of the process.
Mr. Backrack, please, I have the floor, Mr. Backrack. I understand, if you allow me to speak. Please, if you could just have silence. Mrs. Kuzy, if you can get to your point of order, please.
Yes, of course. And then he went on to create the failed scandal-plagued Canada Infrastructure Bank. And the greatest stain on our society, I believe, currently, Mr. Chair, is his role, McKinsey's role in the opioid crisis, where they had to pay $600 million in damages.
Is this Clips Monday?
So, you know, I think given this report by the procurement ombudsman today, Mr. Chair, that it is absolutely necessary for this committee to hear from the procurement ombudsman regarding this report and from the CBSA once again. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen,
Mr. Chair,
please.
if I may, as a point of order?
Yeah, just on that point of order or a different point of order?
Well, I'm just wondering what your ruling will be on the point of order raised by my colleague, Ms. Kuzy.
If I could get to it, I could probably make such a ruling. Mrs. Kuzy, I appreciate your comments. It is not a point of order. Colleagues, if you have read the report, though, it is pretty...
We agree, but that doesn't have...
I'm glad you agree. It's a just, let me please, it is a rather damning report. I appreciate Mrs. Kuzy's comment, though it is not a point of order. I'm glad that you do agree. Perhaps we've had the ombudsman in before.
That's not
okay. My colleagues and Liberals agree with me agreeing. No, I do hope that we will agree that we can get to actually having Mr. Jiglet in NPSBC and perhaps on the report that he's spent the past year doing. And I hope if everyone's fine, we'll find some time to do that.
We're still on the same point of order with the chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Backrack.
Well, I think I share my colleague's concern about the report, and I very much want to see this committee examine that in great detail. My concern is just when points of order are used inappropriately and the chair doesn't cut them off. I don't think that's a latitude that you would allow me or anyone from another party. And so I would just ask in the future that points of order be restricted to actual points of order. And I think all parties are guilty of that at different times, but it's just frustrating, and it's a frustrating way to start an important meeting. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, I should have cut you off halfway through. No, I understand what you're saying. I've allowed wide latitude on other point of orders. I agree, but this one was certainly not a point of order. But I'm glad that you agreeing with me and Mr. Jouari that perhaps we do need to bring Mr. Yiglik and PSPC on that report. So we'll leave it at that if everyone's fine. We will now get to our witness statements.
Let's take a couple more looks at Stephanie Kusi. She is a wild one. She's fun to watch when she's on the House of Commons floor. Let's take another peek at Stephanie Kusi.
After 8 years, scandal runs rampant in the Liberal NDP government. We all know about ArriveCan, and now we know about another $5 million in fraudulent billing. To make matters worse, the billing is across 36 departments and dates back to 2018, pre-pandemic. This is only the first wave of even more fraudulent billing cases. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. So can the Minister answer one simple question? How many millions of dollars in fraudulent billing did Arrive scam cost Canadians? Mr. Speaker, even the Auditor General said that a crisis situation is no excuse for this lack of value for money for Canadians. Conservatives have put forward today a motion related to a Arrive scam to get money back from the contractors who did no actual work. There is one person in this chamber who can make that decision, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has the power to make the decision to get the money back for hard-working Canadians. So will the Prime Minister commit today to getting the money back for Canadians, or will he shirk his responsibility like he usually does?
So gang, yeah, that's the wild cowgirl, Stephanie Kusi. She's an MP from Alberta, giddy up. Yep. And she's always fun to watch. We've had a couple of looks at her on the House of Commons floor in the OGO committee investigations. She's super interesting. One reason that you should like and subscribe. Another one would be the live broadcast that we do of the question periods here. We have a blast, a great community. It's a fun chat room. Come and check out one of the live shows. It's a blast. I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. My name's Ehren. This is Question Period Canada, learning all about Canadian federal politics right here. Come and sign up. Get the business going, guys. We'll be back with more videos. Thanks for watching this one. Remember to stay warm and have something healthy to eat today. Take care. So gang, we're going to wrap up right there. Thank you all for so much for tuning in. To all the new people that are checking out the channel, come back, check us out. We do live stuff all the time. It's not always like this. Usually in the daytime, we're rock steady. We try to have some fun at night. Anyhow, that's it. We're wrapping up. Thank you all so much. That's it. We'll be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. AST, Atlantic Standard Time, 3 p.m. So 2 p.m. Eastern. Figure the rest out. And we are out. Thank you all for watching. You guys are great. This was a lot of fun.